A French human rights NGO has filed a lawsuit in Paris against Apple, alleging massive collection and processing of voice recordings via the Siri assistant without user consent. It comes as a California court is set to rule on a similar case where Apple has already agreed to pay $95 million in settlements without admitting wrongdoing. Technology editor Peter O'Brien joins me now. Hello to you. Peter,
Hi, Will.
What sort of thing were these Apple contractors listening to?
Right, so this all circles around the complaints made by a man called Thomas Le Boniec. He joined a company called Globe Technical Services in Ireland in 2019. This was an Apple contractor, and the people there were meant to be listening through things captured on Siri. Part of what they were doing, and they were paid about €2,500 a month to do this, they had to listen to about 1,300 recordings a day, where they were trying to train it to get better by labeling which of the recordings were activated by accident, by people saying, hey, come and see me, and then your iPhone activates and it thinks you says, hey, Siri, or which ones were legitimate uses of Siri. And so they were going through these recordings and labeling each one to train Siri to get better. Not only that, they were also allegedly pulling out some bits of the keywords that were said in these recordings and linking them to other data, anonymized data, but still data linked to the person whose device it was. So geolocation, maybe what brands they were into, things like that. Siri has just activated. So someone might well be listening to this as we speak. Hope that doesn't get me into trouble. Basically, they had to listen to a lot of stuff that was actually quite difficult to listen to because the unintentional activations could be very, very private conversations. They could be things, talking about politics. They could be violent conversations. They could be sexual in content. This man, Thomas Le Boniec, said he listened to someone talking about a miscarriage, someone talking about their Swiss bank account. And basically, the complaint that's now been lodged by this French Ligue des Droits de l'Homme says this is all in contravention of the GDPR data protection law here in Europe, where you need to give clear consent before your data can be collected and processed.
Yeah, and I know every time I say chérie in French, which is the French equivalent of honey, to my wife, my iPhone lights up. There's plenty of times when I'm guessing our intimate conversations might have been listened.
This is where they've made a monumental, effed up, because they've called it such... I thought it was always a terrible name, Siri, but they have not really taken into account how this might sound to different languages. So this man was working in French specifically, where there was a whole set of, French language stuff. But why didn't they just call it something like, Mr. Humplebert?
Right. There's going to be no ambiguity.
There would be no confusion around. That would have made more sense.
Meanwhile, another case similar in the United States is going to be settled today, Peter.
Yeah, it could be. This is what French media is saying. It's a court in Oakland, California, is ruling this Friday in Lopez versus Apple. Now, this is similar. It's a class action lawsuit based on whistleblowers' complaints about data, having sensitive data being used without consent. But also the allegation there was that this data was being sold to advertisers or used to build up marketing profiles. Now, Apple's denied all this, but it has agreed to settle to the sum of $95 million. Put that into perspective of how much Apple earns. That's about 9 hours of Apple's revenue over the course of a year. So it's a fraction of the amount, and actually each complainant is owed about $20. So that means that it's an absolutely tiny amount, but it does mean it's still a blemish on Apple's reputation as being a kind of privacy and security leader in this case. And they've run into another problem in this week, because the UK government has asked them to provide a backdoor into all of their devices, but that will leave that story for another day. This is a big case for Apple.